Hi there, it's me. And look who else is on the screen right in front of you, Grace Smith. Grace is a fabulous friend of mine. She's a certified hypnotherapist. She's also an expert at overcoming mental and emotional blocks. You've probably seen her on MedCircle in the past, even with some of our other MedCircle doctors like Dr. Ramani. Grace, I'm so happy to have you back on our YouTube channel and especially allocating your time today to answer some of our viewer questions live.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah. Now, you are a certified hypnotherapist. A lot of people hear that and say, when did MedCircle start dabbling in magic as a form of treatment? So why don't we clarify what a hypnotherapist is?
Absolutely. So we don't diagnose, we're not treating disorders. What a hypnotherapist is someone who's very skilled at accessing the subconscious mind. And all that means is relaxing down into what is known as the theta brainwave state. So right now, Kyle and I are having a conversation at what is known as the beta brainwave state, which is conscious waking awareness. It's also where we all experience our stress. And when we're stressed out, it is our least adaptable state, our least malleable state, our least opportunity to bring in new information. But when we're at what's called the theta brainwave state, when we're wonderfully deeply relaxed and feel perfectly safe, our brain can make new connections 100 times faster. And so that's what hypnotherapists do. We help guide you out of beta, down into theta, a relaxed state. And we help you reprogram what's called your subconscious mind in order to overcome things that aren't serving you.
Yeah. When I sat down with Grace and Dr. Ramani, I really pushed Dr. Ramani to not confront hypnotherapy, but to share her true opinions on it. And she looked at me and she said, oh, I mean, I recommend hypnotherapy as the first line of treatment for some things. And I said, like what? And she said, well, like quitting smoking. I say, if you need to quit smoking, go do hypnotherapy first. And I thought, wow, here is a clinical psychologist telling people to go to hypnotherapy. I am so excited to bring this mainstream. And I know that's part of your mission, Grace. And so I'm happy to be on board with that because I believe in the power of that being in the theta brain state for sure. You and I sat down with Dr. Ramani. You said some great stuff about, I'll let you say it, but essentially how we are formed so early on in our lives and how those early formations impact us in our adult lives. Here's what you had to say in our conversation with Dr. Ramani.
And I think to your point about control, this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And the interesting thing and the sad thing is the vast majority of our subconscious beliefs are formed before the age of 7. And so we have this self-fulfilling prophecy of who we're supposed to be in the world, how we're meant to behave, the good things that will happen to us or the bad things that will happen to us. And we create this self-fulfilling prophecy because of subconscious limiting beliefs. We sabotage and sabotage until they become true to have some semblance of control. But if you can upgrade those limiting beliefs, then there's nothing to sabotage.
I resonate with that. Grace, what limiting belief have you overcome as an adult?
So many things. One I spoke about yesterday was really interesting, actually, that hadn't come up in a while. So I'll share it again here today. I originally got into hypnosis myself to overcome smoking. Then I used it to overcome fear of public speaking. I've since used it for dozens and dozens of things. But the group of women I was speaking to yesterday, they all work in the financial services industry. And there's something that happens to not all, but the vast majority of women in the workplace, which is they find themselves tiptoeing where their male counterparts might not. Yeah. And so instead of saying, I'm no longer available today at 3 p.m., how about Friday at noon? They're going, sorry, something came up. I was wondering, could we just? And so what's interesting is that personally, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I help people feel better. And so they assume I'm a certain way. Essentially, they assume I'm Mother Teresa. And really, you know, I'm a very great strategist. I understand the subconscious, but I'm an entrepreneur. We're making hypnosis mainstream, and that requires reaching millions of people. And so there's been a very interesting dichotomy where people want me to be so sweet and tiptoey. I'm personally trying to learn to be more direct and effective. And so then I have to reconcile in my subconscious that I'm not a horrible person for that.
Yeah.
And hypnosis has been very effective in helping me get there, but it's been a winding road to get to the place where I can look in the mirror and say, I'm doing good things in the world and I'm doing them in a good way.
Yeah. Bridget, Bridget and I run MedCircle together, and Bridget and I started as host and producer, and we worked very, very closely together in the early days of MedCircle. And I'm a little bit calling you out here, Bridget, but man, some of these emails I would get from Bridget, I go, Bridget, you're apologizing for nothing. Stop apologizing. And, it was just so embedded in our culture, how we're raised as kids to be this way. And then we see it come up in our lives, in our adult lives. My question, Grace, is Bridget and a million other people don't even realize they're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So how do we fix or improve something if we don't even realizing we're doing it in the first place?
That's such a great question. So what's really interesting with hypnosis is typically people still come to it last. They try everything else. They're not effective. Then they go, all right, now let me eventually try this thing that I still don't really fully understand. And oftentimes it ends up being the one thing that actually works. But when people come through the door, it's for a specific topic. They want to overcome their fear of flying, stop biting their nails, stop snapping at their children. Most people don't come into it saying, I want to upgrade all of my limiting subconscious beliefs. But what happens is the minute you get into the theta brainwave state and you get into the subconscious, even if it's for something as seemingly simple and straightforward as nail biting, all of a sudden you've opened Pandora's box in terms of understanding the limiting subconscious beliefs that are there and that are contributing to all of our behaviors. So it's funny because hypnotherapy is the remedy, right? It's the way that we can get to resolving our subconscious limiting beliefs, but it's also the most effective way to understand what they are in the first place.
Really well said. If you've worked with so many people, you've coached so many other hypnotherapists and trained so many other hypnotherapists, are there any common limiting beliefs that you see rise to the surface more often than not?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, can you just tell me what those are so I can take care of them myself?
Just like
I need the fast drive-through version of hypnotherapy. Yeah.
It's so great that you're asking that. So I think of it kind of like a tree, right? There are what I call the limb issues. These are the physical manifestations of things. They are what we can see. These are the tree limbs. They've got the leaves on them. And that's just what we talked about. That's the nail biting, the binge eating, the insomnia. We know these are our problems.
Yeah.
And that's what people usually come in the door wanting to fix. They want to hack off a limb and they think that that'll solve it. But what we learn from things like, gastro bypass surgery is you can make the stomach this big, but ultimately 85% of people who undergo gastro bypass end up being addicted to alcohol or sex or something else.
85%?
That was the last study that I heard. I mean, don't quote me on the number, but it was outrageously high because it doesn't solve the root issue at all. You've just made the stomach smaller, but there's an addiction taking place and there's an emotional reason for the addiction, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what kind of, if you just come in wanting to quit smoking, is sort of. It's not that you stop smoking with hypnosis and you start doing something equally as destructive. That's not what I'm saying. But you haven't understood why you were smoking in the first place, if that's So once we get out of these limb issues, we get into what I call the trunk. And the trunk is stress. It's basically stress. When your stress goes up, all of your limbs get activated and they get worse. But if you go on vacation for 6 months and you don't have to work and you've got money pouring into your bank account and your stress levels come down, all of a sudden they almost become like phantom limbs. It's like, oh, maybe I don't actually have those problems anymore until the stress comes back up and then we find out they're alive and well. What we really want to do is get to the root, the things we can't see, the things that aren't having their physical manifestation in a clear way. And they're always the same three things: lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence. They're the root of
Now, hold on. Lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-love, lack of self-worth. Now, the lack of self-love and self-worth, to me, I'm not clear on how those are actually different.
Yeah. So someone can feel, they could say in their conscious waking state, I love myself, but I'm not worthy of making more money than my mom did as a nurse.
Got it. I understand.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
And really, really, truly, if we want to get nuanced, lack of self-worth and lack of self-confidence roll up and can fit inside lack of self-love. But it's
Yeah.
easier for people to conceptualize it this way because most people can tackle increasing their self-confidence before they feel comfortable increasing their self-love.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Right?
I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, I interrupted you. We're going to say more after that.
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Hey, great time for me to interrupt. So we're going to get to some of your questions. Please submit them below. And there's also fabulous links available to you at the in the bottom of this video in the description for more help. Yo-yo. Hey, yo-yo. Is it normal to enjoy self-sabotage from drug taking, weakening oneself for a few days, then to enjoy the process of getting stronger through sleep and food? Interesting question here.
Is it normal to enjoy self-sabotage from drug taking, weakening oneself for a few days, then to enjoy the process of getting stronger through sleep and food? So I want to make sure I understand the question correctly. Is the question that if you take drugs, and I'm assuming we're talking about like illegal substances here that are mind altering, in order to feel worse for a little while, so that when you come out of it, you feel better by contrast?
I think that's part of it. And of course, we don't have Yo-Yo here to clarify, but I would also add, I've talked to some people who, and this is a trigger warning here, I'm going to bring up some topics around self-harm. But if you hurt yourself and then can mend to that wound, some people report a feeling of accomplishment, like, oh, good, I've had this injury and now I can heal it. And so if I'm taking these drugs and now I can heal myself back up, you know, this person, Yo-Yo, said, is this normal? What is normal anyway? But what is your response to that, you know, pattern of behavior?
Yes. And really, really great question. So the answer is yes, absolutely. We create problems all the time so we can feel good about solving them, for sure. And I'll give a very interesting example. I was working with an older woman. She was in her early 80s at the time, and she had chronic pain and nobody could diagnose what it was. It wasn't fibromyalgia. It wasn't related to food. It wasn't, they did all the tests. Nobody had any idea where the pain was coming from. It wasn't a previous injury. And I asked her, as I ask my clients, you know, what are all the good reasons for why you'd like to get rid of the pain? And she had a laundry list, 10 pages long. And then I said, what are all the good reasons for why you want to keep the pain? And she looked at me incredulously. There's not one good reason. So that's me asking her conscious mind, which I fully expected that answer. And then when we get to the subconscious mind and the theta brainwave state, and I ask the same questions, immediately the subconscious says, if I get better, my son won't drive 3 hours to see me on the weekends and to watch my grandchildren grow up.
I mean, is that not a compelling reason to stay in pain?
Very compelling reason to stay in pain, especially for a woman at that stage of her life where she didn't have a career. She didn't have very many friends. There weren't very many other things for her to get her self-worth, her self-love from, other than spending time with her grandchildren. So I think Yo-Yo's question was about something that's quite obvious, you know, when we kind of sabotage ourselves in order to get better. And those happen all the time. But there's things happening all the time that we couldn't even remotely put together at the conscious level, that we could not only cause it, but the reason for why we're doing it. And so once we did that session, she told me on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being excruciating blackout pain, she lived at an average of an 8, day in and day out. After that session, the average went down to a 2.
Wow.
And she was able to negotiate with her son and tell him what happened and tell him what she found out. And he said, okay, Grandma, we're still coming to see you twice a month. I'm not coming every weekend. It's a long time, but I'm still going to come see you. And she said, great. So yes, that was a long way of saying yes.
Grace has a few series with MedCircle that also feature some of our MedCircle doctors. And if you are not a MedCircle member, you can start with a free trial. Use the links below. There's no obligation. I mean, MedCircle is not going to be very happy when I say this. You can start a trial, watch Grace's series, and then cancel. You would never get charged a thing. I hope that we provide enough incentive for you to join us, you know, all year long, because that's when you really see the power of this information in your lives. If you need any help with that, feel free to email us, support@medcircle.com. Let's go to another question, Bridget. If we have them. If we don't have a question, I have plenty. Hi, Michelle. I had a therapist try to hypnotize me. Oh, but all it did was increase my anxiety. Is that normal?
It depends on who you're working with and how qualified they are. So hypnotherapy in and of itself cannot increase anxiety, because by going into the theta brainwave state, you automatically are relaxed. So hypnosis cannot cause anxiety, but the fear of being hypnotized, if we don't fully understand what hypnosis is, absolutely can.
Yeah. Or if you're like, now there's this weird person saying, close your eyes, and you go, who are you? You know, if you just met the person or something. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And so what I teach my certification students is the most important part of the first session ever is what's called the pre-talk. And the pre-talk explains what hypnosis is, how it works, what it is not, why it is not what, you know, Hollywood makes it out to be, what to expect from how it will feel. And then we do a little test run. We do what's called self-hypnosis, and we run through that 2 or 3 times so the client can feel what it's like to go from beta into theta. And if they love it, and everybody does, because it feels awesome to get rid of our stress, then we can go into the full session. But if somebody just springs it on you out of nowhere, I'm going to hypnotize you now, I mean, that's a freaky thing if you don't know what it actually is and if they haven't taken the time to explain it to you. So hypnosis in and of itself can only relax you, but the pre-talk and leading up to that needs to be done very well.
I have been hypnotized by Grace twice, and at least twice, perhaps 3 times. Each time it was very enjoyable. And although I have not gone through the typically recommended 6-session hypnotherapy regimen for whatever reason you're going into hypnotherapy, I have noticed drastic changes even after 1 session with you, Grace. And you could argue, well, you're just thinking you have changes because you closed your eye. Well, fine. Even if that is the case, I still feel like I did. So I don't really care the reason. But I don't think that's what it was. I am naturally a skeptical person. I naturally come to you and go, I'm going to prove you wrong. You know, like I'm going to show that this is not real. And that is just not the case. I'm a very firm, staunch supporter from personal experience. Let's go to another MedCircle member question. Or this is not a MedCircle. This is just YouTube viewers. On YouTube viewer question, please. And actually, I have another thing to talk about after this. Is it correct to say that a deep level of meditation is similar to hypnosis? Ah, great question. Love the cat, by the way.
Beautiful cat. Yes, absolutely. In fact, I call hypnosis meditation with a goal. Yeah. So that's exactly right. We are in a meditative state. We're not in a sleep state. We are not blacked out. There is no amnesia. That's what the movies make it look like. They make it look like we are in the delta brainwave state, which is asleep. And when we are asleep, we are not consciously aware of our surroundings. We're not thinking, oh, I'm in my bed right now. Our conscious mind is offline, but clearly our subconscious is alive and well when we're sleeping. That's the dream state, the REM state. Theta is just above that, a deep meditative state. So for anyone who's meditated, you know that you're fully aware of your surroundings. And if the fire alarm went off, you'd open your eyes and you'd walk out, right? If someone's making noise outside your window, you can hear it and you know what's happening, but you're so wonderfully deeply relaxed and you feel so perfectly safe that it is a markedly different feeling, sensation, and state than our regular waking consciousness. So that's exactly right. Enter into a meditative state to do the work.
Another great resource for free, if you're interested in this conversation, is Grace's own YouTube channel. We will link to that in the description of this video. You can also just go type Grace Smith into the YouTube bar, or it's Grace Smith TV. She also has a great Instagram. So if you want to go find her on Instagram, that's a great place too. Let's go to, I think we have another question. If not, I have something to bring up. So if there's a question, Bridget, just throw it on screen. Otherwise, Grace, yesterday, MedCircle members did a live class with neuropsychologist and forensic psychologist, Dr. Judy, and it was on inner child work, which has been, everyone's been asking us to do this. So we finally set it up. Attendance was huge. The feedback was fabulous. It was like one of our best classes we had yesterday. And this isn't on YouTube. This is what we do at medcircle.com for our members. But the theme of inner child work is essentially going back to have interactions with that younger version of yourself to, I'm not a doctor, but to rewrite the history or to heal those wounds so that the present day you can move forward in much more peace and clarity. And again, I was very like, this is so blah, I'm going to write a letter to my little self. I don't want to do this. But y'all, you really feel the change happening in that moment. How much is our childhood affecting our adult lives?
Almost 100%.
That's what I think. It's
Almost
like, that's what I think. Okay, so explain that more.
So when we talk about the theta brainwave state, where we're making connections in our brain at this rapid pace, where we're more creative, we are connected to our intuition, and our inhibitions are lowered a little bit. That reminds us of children. And there's a reason for that. Under the age of 7, our brains have not developed to the point yet where they produced very many beta brain waves. So as a 7-year-old and under, we're basically walking around in the theta state all day long. A little bit of alpha in there too, which is like daydreaming. So that means we're creative, we're problem solving. If we hear our favorite song in the middle of the grocery store, we're going to boogie down and dance when we're 3 years old, but we wouldn't be caught dead doing that at 12 years old. So under the age of 7, we are learning constantly from everyone around us, all of these inputs about what the world is, who we are. It's when the language development's happening, right? And so we take that, and then at 8 years old, more or less, this kind of conscious wall goes up, and we're kind of locked in, and it's essentially who we are. And until we take an active participatory role in going back into the theta brainwave state on purpose as adults and going, my mom had a lot of anxiety when I was 5, and she modeled for me what it means to be an adult person. And as I get closer to the age that my mom was when I was 5, I am acting more and more and more like her, right? We all go, I'm becoming my mother.
I mean, don't we all say that? I've turned into my mom and dad. Yeah.
But we don't say that when we're 17, right?
No.
And why is that? Because not everybody, there are some wonderful, 17-year-old parents out there. For me, my mom was 30 when I was born. So when I was 5, a very pivotal year of subconscious brain development, she was 35. So when I turned 35, I look in the mirror and I go, what happened? I'm Joni. What? It's like, she showed me how to be a 35-year-old person, and I ended up being that 35-year-old person. And that just continues, right? Until you can go in and say, okay, as much as I love my mom and she did a great job, there's a couple things I don't need to perpetuate forever. And I don't need to now model that for my 4 and 1-year-old. Yeah. And so we go in and we upgrade it at the level where it was formulated, which is at the subconscious level.
Yeah. I think so many people will hear this and think, okay, well, the only way to do this is through inner child work, or the only way to do this is through hypnotherapy. Y'all, I'm not a doctor. Just find whatever it is that works for you. If that's hypnotherapy, fabulous. If that's working with a therapist and doing inner child work, do that. If it's doing both, do that. I mean, it's just, our goal is to give you as many options as possible that are good and credentialed and science-backed, and then you can choose which one you like, or try them all and then choose. We have a great question. Let's hear it. Let's read it. Astra, hello, but I can't even relax for a massage or intimate situations. Would hypnotherapy still work for me? I've thought about doing hypnotherapy for self-esteem and memory recovery. All right, Grace.
So even to this day, and I can go into the theta state in 2 seconds. I've done so much hypnotherapy.
Oh, just brag a little bit.
But to this day, I can't get a massage without my mind racing. Unless I actively put myself into hypnosis during a massage, which I can do. But if I'm just normally getting massage, I'm my normal entrepreneurial brain self, which is so yes, if you have not been able to relax during a massage, you can very well be in the beta brainwave state and get a massage, which means all the anxieties and all of your to-do list and everything that your team needs from you and your kids need from you and your house needs from you, they can all be on your mind. Now, if you do self-hypnosis during the massage and go into theta, you'll have a much better experience, and I highly recommend it. But all of that is to say, you don't have to be a meditator. You can be the most anxious person on the planet. In fact, when I first launched my hypnotherapy business, my first office was in Union Square in New York City.
That's right.
And people would show up late, stressed out, angry, And the first thing they would say is, my mind is like a steel trap door. I am so anxious. This isn't going to work. But they're there anyway because they've tried everything else. And their spouses, you know, like, you've got to find something. So here they are. And then hypnotherapy is the thing that works for that person. And that's the whole wonderful thing about having a hypnotherapist. Our job is to be able to get you to theta. You don't need to get there yourself.
Let's tease this out a little bit more, though. Why? So when you get a massage, why don't you just put yourself in theta?
Well, I run an Inc. 5000 fastest growing business, and I've got 2 little kids. And sometimes if I've booked a massage for myself, it's the only time I have to actually think and not act.
So it's by choice.
Plan. So it's by choice.
Yeah.
But if I've done all my planning for the day and I just want to get out of my head, I will instantly do self-hypnosis.
Yeah, when I get a massage, I normally say, I am so sorry. I'm probably going to fall asleep in 2 seconds. So if I snore too loud, just wake me up. Let's go to another question or comment, please. So wonderful to see you all on YouTube. Hi, Simply Extreme. At 65, I'm willing to try this. All right. My next step is to find out cost, because on a very limited Social Security, disability, and part-time work, you're not alone, Simply Extreme. Grace?
Yes, I'm so happy you're going to give this a shot. That's wonderful. So there's a number of different ways that you can experience hypnotherapy for free. One of them is here on MedCircle, learning all about it. Also, my YouTube channel has free videos. I've got an app with a free level that I highly, highly recommend anybody interested in giving this a shot. Download the app. You go to getgrace.com. It's available on Apple and Android. And again, lots of free recordings in there. If you do choose to upgrade, I think it's $19.99 a month. So all of these things are meant to be fairly accessible. And then it is a stretch to work with a hypnotherapist. It is unfortunately not yet covered by major insurance providers. And so we at our company have done the best we could to provide it at the most accessible price that we can, while still, you know, paying our hypnotherapists very well. And so that is $119 a session. But the national average is $150 a session, and that number is on the rise. So we're still the most affordable option out there. And you can find that at getgrace.com as well. But for those on a really limited budget, go the free route. You'll feel better. You absolutely will. Listen to my self-hypnosis video on YouTube. Just sort by most watched. You'll find it at the top. And
that's right.
In 15 minutes.
That's right. Let's go to another question, please. This person, hi, Dave. Question for my American sister, Grace. Is there any good fictional portrayals? Oh, I love this. Of hypnotherapy that you have seen recently? And if not, how do you think the media can change the perception in a good way?
Great question, Dave. So what I say to some of my clients when I get a little upset about how Hollywood portrays hypnotherapy, and I know why they're doing it. They want to be able to have a device that says, here's my character, this is who they are, this is what they believe in, this is how they act in the world. Now they were hypnotized and they act in this completely different way that they never would have chosen for themselves. And here's why. It's lazy screenwriting. And it's just an easy device for them to use. And when my clients are like, well, I get it, but you know, these movies are funny. I'm like, okay, so imagine every single time a movie portrayed a chiropractor, they saw them breaking someone's neck. Every single time in every single movie. Who would go to a chiropractor?
Yeah.
Even though we all know somewhere chiropractics can really help and it's evidence-based. Who would go? And every single movie making it look like mind control, which it is not, is...
Well, and even more so because most people have been to a chiropractor or know someone who's been to a chiropractor. Most people have not been to hypnotherapy. So you take this thing with no background and you give the very first introduction to this thing as this mystical Hollywood fantastical nonsense.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I can't say that I've seen any fictional portrayals that are great yet, but exactly. I mean, I would love if there's any attorneys watching who want to jump on board with me to start a class action lawsuit in Hollywood, just not because I want to punish anybody, but just to make it a rule that if you're going to portray hypnotherapy in your film, do it in a way that is accurate, because not only are you hurting the livelihoods of the hypnotherapists out there, you are depriving all of your viewers from looking into something that could be the one thing that actually finally moves the needle and allows them to heal and find peace in their lives. I mean, a lot is at stake here when it's misrepresented, and it's misrepresented all the time. But if movies and TV shows started showing, you know, a hypnotherapist, exactly, I mean, 90% of what we do is inner child work, back down into their childhood and reframing an experience that was painful into one that was beautiful and empowering. And all of a sudden now here's this person who can walk into a boardroom feeling like $1 million instead of like a shrinking violet, you know, and their whole life is different. That would be great. It would completely change the narrative in a couple of years.
Yeah, no question. Give me a quick punch list, Grace, of some of the top concerns people have that hypnotherapy typically has good results in helping.
Stress and anxiety, insomnia, weight loss that actually lasts permanently, nail biting, fear of flying, fear of public speaking, intimacy issues. Somebody asked a question about that. I mean, so much of the time that's about relaxing and feeling safe and confident. Fertility, hypnobirthing. Obviously, what I used it for was just feeling good in my own skin in the workplace. There's so many. It's any habit, any subconscious belief, and any emotional response. Snapping at your kids, snapping at your partner. There's just so many of us who were raised around wonderful human beings who had modeled for them, right? Just think about what the world was like when our parents were children and what our grandparents modeled for them as perfectly normal behavior. Lots of yelling, right? Lots of spanking, lots of you obey me. And then we think about parenting and how we want to raise our children and the different kinds of conversations we want to have and how we want to, you know, instill inclusivity and understanding in our children. But we were raised by people who weren't raised that way. So there's a lot of going into the subconscious and upgrading our narrative so that our children don't have to learn that the hard way later on in life. They can get it as a part of their foundation now.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving us your time today, Grace. Thank you all for watching. If you've not subscribed, hit it right now. We're about to go into Mental Health Month for May, so we've got a lot of stuff, fabulous stuff lined up for y'all. It's going to be a busy month for us and hopefully a really impactful month for you guys. And really appreciate you being here. Grace, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kyle. And thank you to everybody who asked such wonderful questions.
Absolutely. Watch.medcircle.com. Go check it out. I'm Kyle. Remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.